Calories in and calories out. I've always heard this term, and while I used to think it was true in the past, I don't really anymore. And I'll tell you why, so let's chat about it. Jumbo, my friends, welcome back to What the Foss, podcast that takes user questions and answers them of all things that have to do with fitness, alternative fitness methods, and finding the movement and goals that make you the happiest. I'm Zoe, or the coach Zoe, you know, and today I wanted to talk to you about overeating because for me, overeating is like my appetite. It's basically a dark, vast pit where you really can't find the end of it. I'm a guy who, even though people see me and they might not think that, I can put down a ton of food. I know a lot of people brag about that, but there were times in my life where I was putting down so much food and it was being a big deterrent in my life instead of actually being towards my benefit or towards my exercise. Today I want to give a little bit of insight into my background about that, how it got a bit dangerous, and also how I got out of it and how it can bring the benefit to you to figure out how much food you should actually be taking in on a regular basis. With my background with overeating, I'm a big food guy. My family, we would always cook a variety of meals. We did a lot of cooking because it was more affordable, but also because my dad loved to cook. He instilled that in me about loving to cook and taking time to prepare food and try different food and enjoy food. And it wasn't a bad thing. I got to try a lot of amazing different foods. I got to travel a bunch, and a lot of my reasons for traveling is to try different foods in different areas. And it's a big part of my life. It's a big part of something that I do enjoy. However, it wasn't something that I always really enjoyed. And the reason was because I overate. It wasn't to the point, thankfully, where I was purging or anorexic or bulimic. However, I did overeat and get close to those points in my life. Growing up, even though I maybe didn't look that way, I always felt like I was fat. I always felt like I was obese. Even though I was doing these activities, I didn't really feel like myself. I didn't feel like the person who was doing these activities and looked like they did activities or looked like they worked out or anything in that shape. I was always called fat and a loser and stuff from my brother, and brothers, siblings, you know, they bully you about stuff, but I always also got it from some other people. And although you don't want to take it personally, at times in your life, you do. And what I thought would get me out of the bad eating that I was doing, and I hate the term bad eating because people always think there's like bad foods and good foods. It's not really that. There's foods that are less nutritious, and then there are foods that are better nutrition or provide more for your body. So for example, like a donut, it's less nutritious. It's not that having the one donut would be bad. It's when you all of a sudden you blink and you've eaten a box of Krispy Kreme donuts. Not a sponsor. But when you've eaten a box of those, that's where it gets a bit worse. It's mainly just that overeating. It's that spike that you get from overeating and where that extra amount is stored as fat. But you can do that for a bunch of different foods, even some of the foods that seem like they're towards your benefit. They're just usually more fibrous, more nutritional value, so they're a bit tougher to overeat at times. For me, the eating of food turned into something that went from just eating to eat to thinking that I needed to replenish calories, because I got into working out, I got into fitness, I had my own fitness journey, and I thought that the exercise I was doing, that way I could eat more food. It's known as the reward mindset. And this reward mindset, while not bad in all circumstances, it's basically where you do some exercise, you think, oh, cool, I did that exercise. I'm going to reward myself with this treat. And the treat for me would usually be food. I'm more of a savory guy versus a sweet guy. If I get a craving for something, it's usually something savory. It's your Italian food, Mexican food, Chinese food, things that are a bit more salty. And I just got way more out of that. And when I was doing this, I would exercise a bunch, and then I would get that reward, and my reward would be either making a bunch of food and eating it all in one sitting, and then just kind of being lazy and chilling out on the couch. And this wasn't like eating one bag of chips. This was like getting 3 bags of chips, or getting those, if you're in the grocery store and you see some of those like frozen meals, well, you have some ones that are like the lean cuisine, but then you get these big boys, that are like the Stouffer's, like the family dishes. Those would be the kind of things that I would eat in a single sitting. And I would do stuff like that. I would get pizzas and have 2 large stuffed Chicago style pizzas, because I felt like I had that reward and I was able to eat all that, and that it was towards my benefit because I was replenishing on calories, even though I probably did like 500 calories worth of exercise and took in 4,000 plus extra calories probably in a sitting. And the real reason probably I could do this is because hormonally, there's 2 hormones to know about. There's ghrelin and there's leptin. So ghrelin is basically your hunger hormone. It tells you when you're hungry and when you should eat. Mine is probably very overactive. Another hormone that you have that's released from your fat cells is known as a leptin. And leptin is basically the hormone that tells your body when it's full that you should stop consuming food. You should relax. For some people, that's when they have just a little bit of food and they're kind of like nibblers, eat a bit. And then there's people like me who that hormone is basically turned off. And because of this, I kept doing exercise and I kept eating a bunch of this food. And most of the time at first, it was just like eating out with friends. I would go to Chili's and I would get the dinner for 2, where it comes with appetizers, 2 big plates, and a dessert. And they would look around the table seeing what the other person was going to order of that dinner for 2. And then I would just raise my hand again and be like, I would also like, and go into whatever food item you can place in there. But it gets to a bad point, I believe, when instead of being something that's fun and like a reward, it seems to be something where you feel like you have to do it. I see it in a similar way as someone who starts having a dependency on alcohol. There could be a lot of dependencies, but let's just use alcohol for this example. You go out, you drink with your friends, you have a good time. That's where you leave it. You don't over abuse it. You just have a couple. That's okay. Moderation is key. But if you're at home by yourself and it's late at night, or it's any time, and you feel this urge that you have to drink, and you do it by yourself, and you take down way too much alcohol, and you start canceling plans because you'd rather take down alcohol, or you would rather just stock up on a bunch of alcohol just to sit by yourself and drink it and not have anybody else judge you for it or see you doing it. That's kind of the way food got to me. I would be hiding food in bags if I brought it home so people wouldn't see it. I would wait till people were out of the house in order to go get food and bring it back to my room to eat it then. And I would basically stuff my face until I was almost sick, but not fully sick. And it wasn't beneficial at all, but I was very ashamed about it because I had this image that I was becoming this fitness guy, and that was important to me. And I didn't want to tarnish that image, so I just hid it away. And if I had, I wouldn't have any scraps because I ate it all. But if I had like pizza boxes or whatever, basically containers that I had from that meal, I would make sure to carefully take it out when the time was right so that nobody would see it and there wouldn't be any evidence that I took down multiple pizzas or huge bags of fries or whatever the case was. It really took a turning point for me when I was with my family in North Carolina. And there was this pizza place and they asked me to order whatever thing I wanted and then what they wanted and then bring it back. And I got what they wanted, pizza to share, and then I got mine, which was this like double XL hamburger pizza. If you don't know what this is, it's basically like a cheeseburger pizza where it has hamburgers, it has fries in the top of it, it has the cheese, and then it has these rings of ketchup mustard. Yeah, it's not great, but at the time, it was just what I was consuming after I had run that day. And my dad looked at it and he looked back at me, and I know he's not a type of guy to shame anybody, and it wasn't anything to be shameful, but he basically looked at it and he looked back at me and he said, "What the hell are you doing?" And I was like, "What do you mean?" I ordered a pizza. I do this all the time, or I'll make something, a big dish myself, like the whole box of pasta, and eat it in one sitting. And he told me, "You're going through all of this exercise and you're putting in all this work for what?" That was a weird point that kind of took me a second to think over, but I realized that he was right. I wasn't really having any other issues with exercise or working out. The only thing that was really holding me back from getting any better was myself and my own decisions with overeating, because I was seeing the food as more important than the goals that I had for all this time that I was putting into exercising. I was basically my own roadblock. I didn't know how I was going to get over it, but I did. It's not about cutting it out immediately, but it's about slowly slimming it down and really thinking when you're in those situations of, why am I eating this? Do I need to eat this? And as this went on, I slowly have gotten better from that. And do I still do any of that today? No, I don't think to that same point. Do I still consume a lot of food? Yeah, at times, when I feel like it's the right time and I've really considered everything, I'll have some times where, yeah, I can still put down a bunch of food, but it's not to a sickening point. But what I want to talk about for you is, let's say you undereat, let's say you overeat, let's say you're not sure how much you're even eating. How do you figure out where you need to be? Well, I have kind of 3 basic ideas of how to find the right amount of food for you and how to eat the right things. So I can give this to a certain point, right? Obviously, I'm not a registered dietitian. I cannot give you full nutritional advice on a legal standpoint because I'm not a certified registered dietitian. But I can give you some recommendations. 3 areas I would focus on. The first one would be calculating your TDEE. And basically what that means is your total daily exercise expenditure. That should be what it means, but double check me if not. But yeah, your total daily exercise expenditure basically says from your activity level and your height and your weight and different things about you. It basically gives you a good number of a calorie goal that you should hit or be right around in order to maintain your weight. If you're trying to lose weight from that point, at most, I would only recommend going down, let's say 500 calories from whatever that is. But don't undereat as well. It's such a dumb thing to undereat because you need to fuel your body for the things that you want to do. I'll make sure for that total daily exercise expenditure, if you don't know how to calculate it or how to do it, I'll leave a link for a calculator. But again, if you just Google TDEE calculator, you'll find something that'll work pretty well for you. And make sure not to lie when you're on it. Make sure you get your actual weight and put in your actual activity level. I don't know why I did it, but I used to lie about it just to try to maybe get myself a number where I could say, oh, well, I'm allowed to eat 4,500 calories a day because I'm doing all this activity, when really I was doing like 3 days a week and not 7 plus. There's only 7 days in a week. Genius. Right here. But just make sure your numbers are accurate when you put those in, and it'll give you a good idea of how to base it around. Now, when you're doing something like that, you can also use some apps to basically figure out how much you're actually eating now. Good one, MyFitnessPal, does a bunch of stuff for that, but there's a ton out there. Just do your research. You'll figure out a good one for you. The second bit is what I call a temptation timer. A temptation timer is helpful for me because I might have a portion of food that is the right amount of food for me. And I'll set a timer for 10 minutes after eating that food. The reason that I do that is so I don't automatically go back up and say, yep, I'm hungry, I need more, to go back up and get that food. It basically gives me that self-control to figure out after 10 minutes, after I've digested a bit more, to possibly have that leptin hormone that we talked about before start to release to tell me, oh, you are actually full, you've had enough of what you need. So make sure you set this temptation timer. Mine's 10 minutes. I would recommend 10 to 15 minutes, somewhere in there. If after the 10 minutes you still feel like you need a little more, try something a little light to have a little bit more afterwards, and then see how you feel again. But usually this is the right amount of time for that to kind of kick on. So just make sure it'll kind of help you avoid kind of overfilling your plate or getting multiple portions that maybe you don't need, and helps you get out of that cycle of overeating. The third bit is to experiment and enjoy your food. The other ones that I said kind of sound like really restricting and controlling, even though they're not. But the most important bit is that you're trying new foods and enjoying the foods that you actually have. There's a bunch of people who jump on these fad diets. It's always common to, whether it's keto, Atkins, you name it. There's a bunch of these that really aren't sustainable for some people. And they try to do it and they just flop and it doesn't work. You just want to make sure that instead of going after a diet, you need to go after more of a nutrition plan or a nutrition guide. You want to find something in this case that gives you a bit more clarity on some variety of food options that you can have, and then trying to just mix through those and see what works best for you. Moderation and variety are going to be key in this process. So I just want to make sure that you understand that. To reiterate those points, calculate your TDEE. It'll help you with the right amount of food that you probably need in a day, given your activity level. Work on a temptation timer if overeating is an issue for you as well. And also experiment and enjoy your food, because if you can't enjoy the process or you can't enjoy the food that you're eating, you're most likely not going to stick to that process or stick to that plan, and you'll fall off track. Before I conclude today's episode, I want to talk about today's sponsor, which today's sponsor is Acne. Not Acme, like the company, but Acne. Acne. So, if you're watching the video, I'm coming up close to the camera. I have big spots there. I have huge forehead wrinkles. I have a few spots. But you know what? I don't care. And neither should you. Because instead of worrying about your own face and your own pimples and thinking everyone's gonna see, you should just live your life and be comfortable. Just relax. Nobody cares about your pimples because they care more about their own problems, and they're not even focused on this stuff on your own face. Acne. The thing you shouldn't care about. Along with acne, don't shame yourself because of what you have on your face. Don't shame the food that you're eating. And don't shame yourself for eating it. Remember, it's about moderation. You need to have the right foods at certain times. There's certain times where you can have a small slice of cake, or you can have a little bit of something else. but make sure it's moderated and it's not your entire life. It doesn't make up your life, because food shouldn't be your main activity. It should fuel your activities that you move for. It should fuel the things that inspire you to go out there and to try something new, to try an activity or a sport or something you've always wanted to do. If you're ever interested in that, you can always contact me at any of my social media handles or at www.fossmovementtraining.com. If you want to hear another topic or you have a question for me, you can always shoot me a DM and perhaps you'll make it onto one of these episodes. But otherwise, enjoy your weekend, enjoy the weeks to come, eat the right food that is good for you, and we'll talk again.